Hello, it's me, the the man. Hi, Tutorial Tuesday. Here we go. It's time for the funs. How y'all doing? Excuse me, just making sure my Twitch app is all open on my phone and everything, so I can see questions as they come in without having to go back and forth to OBS a lot. Um, Come on. Okay. Okay. So yes, tutorial today. Right on the screen, Ty. Proportions. Just gonna be talking about um, kind of like basic human anatomy stuff. Not gonna really get into like musculature and stuff like that, but basically like different rules pertaining to proportions and stuff. So basically like how to tell if spacing is right on a character you're drawing and stuff like that when you're like drawing things out. So today's probably not going to be like that long of a stream unless I got like a shitload of questions. Because I mean, there's only so many rules I could go over. If people come in late and ask me questions, I'll go over them again, obviously. But I figured, you know what, after last week and having to go through 4 hours of footage to like see what I needed to cut out from technical difficulties and stuff like that, I was like, all right, I can't make these tutorials like 4 hours long because I gotta go through and cut them up for YouTube and stuff. So I'm probably gonna aim for 2 hours and then we'll see where I go from there. If I get a bunch of questions towards the end, it'll be whatever. But I might end the tutorial portion of the stream and then like end the stream and then start it up again so I can just like do some like regular drawing or something, or maybe I'll just end stream early and raid somebody or whatever. But yeah, so welcome to this. This Tutorial Tuesday's proportions. So yeah, basically just going over some basics for being able to draw characters in general. I'll grab some I'll grab some like random characters and give like examples based on like different art styles and stuff like that too. I think some of it is probably stuff I've like briefly mentioned, but I figured since I actually want to like record talking about this, it would be good to like go over a couple things I might have mentioned in past streams that are related to proportions, but also just like have it recorded so people who want to reference it at some point or something, if somebody's drawing and they're like, oh, how far apart are these two things supposed to be or something like that. So, and disclaimer, anything I say on here is basically just like an art rule. It doesn't necessarily mean every single person in the world is the same in terms of proportions, obviously. It's just like a general rule of a good way to get a feel on if something is right or not. Like it's not a thing that's set in stone with how people actually look, but it's like a way that if you're drawing something and it doesn't look right, if you follow the different proportion rules, you might realize like, oh yeah, you tweak something, move something over to the left a little bit to make the proportions right, and you'll be like, oh yeah, that's right. So basically just like average body sizes, average facial features, etc. So before I start, I don't know if anybody has any specific questions, but let me just get we'll just grab a square here. Feel free to ask questions if you have anything specific, but I mean, I'm going to go over a bunch of random rules today. So I guess the question is, do I start with the full body explanation or do I start with head stuff first? Maybe head would make them. Well, you know what? I'll do full body. Full body stuff is probably important. Um, but so yeah, there's gonna be. I mean, obviously, I'm gonna be doing like doodles, drawing stuff, but it's going to be, it's not anything overly complicated. And again, it's going to be stuff that's like a general rule of thumb, but is not necessary because obviously people are all different shapes and sizes. Um, so let's just real quick um, talk about average height would probably be a good place to start. So if you're drawing like an adult character, an average rule is let's see. So let's hold on, let's get a head. Okay, so here's a head. Boom, boom. So we have the measurement of the head here. Now, an average adult character, and obviously this could also depend on whatever style you're drawing in and blah, blah, blah. But an average adult person is like, I believe, roughly around 7 heads tall. And again, it varies. I believe the actual number is between let me see, writing this out, 5 to 8 heads tall. So again, just usual amounts. And so the way that kind of works out is, so you got the one head here. And here I'll actually zoom in a little more as I do this, so it's a little easier for me to see and easier for you guys to see. So if we're going with a general proportion, I remember learning 7.5 was like the standard. Like if you're trying to, it looks weird now, 7.5 heads. Okay. So 7.5 heads is like a standard thing to go for if you're drawing an adult character. Let's see, we'll write between 5 to 8 heads tall, standard. So basically what that means is that if you look at a human body, you take the size of somebody's head, and if you multiply that down to where if they're standing up straight, and you take the measurement of their head, if you go down, it'll be roughly 7 heads length down their body, and then there should be like half a head left, like near the feet. And again, it obviously depends on the person. Everybody's different. But it's just a general art rule for if you're trying to draw a person, that's a good way to get a feel for getting an adult-sized character. So, so let's say you have one head. Okay. And then what you could do then is we'll grab this and literally just copy and paste the line and boom. Okay, so for the second head, it basically comes down to the chest. So that would be like so like the pecs, the nipple area kind of thing. So around middle of the neck, from chin down. Obviously, people have chins. Their chins protrude down a little bit past the neck. So, but So this would be roughly. We'll make this a flat character here, but so basically the knops there, roughly how that works. So you could kind of just rough out a rib cage here. And so rib cage. So the second or the third head would come to, yeah, hold on, I gotta fix this rib cage. So let's copy this again. So basically just gotta take this down as I go. Okay, so you know what? I think I made this chest a little too small, actually. Haha, we're talking proportions. I'm messing it up. You know what? It's actually probably easier for me to just put all the lines together first. Let's flatten this image. No, flatten layers. Merge selected. There we go. Okay, so we'll get all these out first. Okay, there we go. So now this is, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, wow, that's going to actually work out to like exactly 7.5. How about that? Neato. So in which case, let me make this person bigger in general. So I gotta move this up. Move them to the side a little bit here so we get proper fitting. Okay, cool. So we have merge layers again. Okay. So now let's be better to grab another example or just draw it out. I guess drawing it out. Make this, so make the notes a little smaller. Okay. So, and then we have so another rule, if I remember correctly, basically from shoulder to shoulder, and again, this is like based on like average adult male size, it would be kind of like roughly 2 heads across. I'm not 100% sure on that one. I think that one can vary depending on the person. But I mean, obviously, if you can kind of look in like a mirror or something, you can kind of see that if you were to, not to be gross, split your head in half, or if you were to move your head over to basically your neck, basically, it would basically take up the same amount of space here and then take up the space here. So roughly 2 heads across from edge of shoulder to edge of shoulder. So, and then you get the base of the here, let's see, base of the ribs. So I don't want to get too much into the actual anatomy because I want to like refresh myself on a little more of like structure with certain anatomy things. But for rough anatomy, basically again at the second it'll be like nipple level for the second head, and then for the third it'll be navel level. So it would be like kind of the very very base of the ribs, maybe a little bit underneath. Um, have shoulders. So anyway, hi, yes, hello. Yeah, so let's see here. Just kind of rough out. Obviously put in all the little bits here. So then that would also fall into like the I'm trying not to get too much into anatomy itself, but so see, this is making a funny face now. But yeah, so the ribs come down around roughly around here, and they do come down a little more in the back. So you basically get like what's a better way to. This is actually starting to look like a funny face. So you get the rib cage. And then actually, so that could that come up a little bit. So, and no, I ain't drawing no bits, yo. Anyway, so yeah, so basic rule, is one head is the measurement you would use is just the length of the head, and since people could have like different size heads, that's a good way to again measure proportions. So basically, like, I mean, you could have somebody with like a smaller head, but if you use their head as like their measurement thing, you could be like, well, this person is they seem like they have a disproportionately tall head. You could still go by how many heads that person is to try and figure out like other proportion things. So if you have somebody with like maybe like a rounder head, like less of a chin, but you still use their head as the measurement, you can go by whatever and be like, all right, well, that person's that many heads tall. So say you take a photo of like a model basically or something like that, like if you have like a reference model, you could kind of use that as like a guide basically. Okay, so for the next head, basically to the crotch region, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and then as you can imagine, the 7 and the etc., because it can again go. Usually the height is 8. Again, it's between 5 and 8. But I usually go by the measure of 7.5. So that would be right down to the 7.5, right down to the edge here, basically. So then you have to let's see, what is the actual term here? So it'd say the knees, but the knees are, this might be better if I did actually bring that up a little more. So usually it's like to where the fingers would reach on like the thigh, and then like a little under the knees, and then basically like the shin to the like to the feet. So it would be like probably be better if I actually write it out. So we have head, chest, navel, I don't know if I should write that. Should I just write bits? I don't know if I write the word crotch on here, if Twitch is going to be like, why does that say crotch? um, what's a better term for this? I don't even know. I'm blanking on what a better term would be for the bottom of the. I don't know, we'll say butt. Hip. Hip. Hip, 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 hip. Bottom. Bottom, hip. Thigh. Did not tithe. Thigh. Knee. Shin. And Pete's. Okay. So, and again, this is going to vary a little bit, depending on the person. So, with the knee is kind of like in between if you're doing the 7.5. If you're going by 8, then it's like basically a full foot for each of these, or a full head for each of these. But yeah, so if you're going by the 7.5 rule, have and again, apologies, I don't have music because I don't know what music is good to play during this kind of stuff. So there you go. So let's see this. It connects. The ba 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 da ba ba da ba ba da ba da ba da ba. Right? That was probably a good song to play. I just play spooky, scary skeletons during all this. Making this person a little bow-legged. And then Pete's. Ankle. And Pete's. I'm not drawing the feet out because I might get flagged on Twitch. So. But yep, we're just roughing this out. Because grabbing some other random thing feels like cheating. And I'm doing the lesson, I gotta draw it. Okay. So here's, oh, that's messed up. Gotta fix them quads, them Quad City DJs. Little thing here. Okay. So, general rule of thumb: if you're going with the recommended 7.5 on average, I'll move this up a tiny bit here. This is what you basically get for proportions. So, again, obviously it depends. When you have smaller, the smaller the character, the different proportions. So, when you get below 5 heads, that's when you start getting into basically when they showed child characters. So 5 to 8 would be like I don't know, I guess roughly like teen, no, yeah, like teenage to adult way of like showing off characters. And then if you want to make sure you have a child character, it would be like um 4.5. A baby is like 2.5. And you know, look at a baby. I forget how user head is. Oh, a baby is probably more like 3. I might have to grab extra reference for that again. But for the most part, it's you know, the smaller the difference in the height, obviously the smaller the character. So you don't scale the head. Basically, when you're making a child character, you leave the head roughly that size, and then you're like, okay, well, if it's a child, it's something like a babu. It's like, all right, well, that's like the torso is like a head, and then the legs are like a head, and it's like a small child, and they're like, ha, I am toddler. Yeah, that's probably a good thing. It's like basically like toddler sized would be like 3 heads. Um, so and then just kind of scale it from there. And obviously, if you're making like a humongous character, you could be like, well, I want that character to be freaking again, oh, monstrously tall. Got to like you want to show that they're like abnormally tall, kind of thing like that. You could probably add a couple heads on there in terms of height, but like if you want the person like the really tall person to still seem like they have normal human proportions and they're just like huge, like a giant character, then you would still follow the rules anyway. Also, so since I have the full body thing here, let's talk arms. So a good way to get an idea of arms proper proportion is to use the ribs. So if you, and I'll do just as an example now, if you say you're like sitting watching this kind of thing like this, if you put your arm right to your side, your elbow, the edge of your elbow is most likely resting at the edge of your rib cage. So in which case would be around here. So that's a good way, rule of thumb of the proportion for that is boom. I'll write that down. Elbow at it's a good term for that. The actual like edge of the ribs, because it's not the bottom of the ribs, because the ribs come down a little bit more at the very bottom of the spine. So it would oh man, maybe not. I'll just say base of ribs then. Yeah, I have the thing here. Y'all can see it at rib base. And then for the rest of the arm is basically down to this marker here. So you would have like, hold on, let me fix that. I've also noticed, not that this has anything to do with anatomy specifically, I've noticed a weird thing where I got used to like manually switching between tools on Clip Studio instead of just flipping my pen over. I don't know what started that, but that's a weird little fun thing I've been doing apparently. Yeah, so basically the elbow would be here, kind of in between the it could probably vary a little bit again depending on how tall the person is, but I would say it's somewhere between the base of the ribs or the navel depending on the character's height, or between rib and navel. So for the rest of it, the wrist would basically come down to the hip / crotch area. Hold on. It's okay. It's doing its little autosave stuff. And then the hand would come down the thigh area. So for hand, you probably want to have, let's see, what's a good way to explain the hand? So a lot of people will draw hands way too small, which I've especially noticed recently with a lot of fan art. I feel like I'm seeing way more hands that are too small than I used to see. And I don't know if it's because so many, I mean, it's usually like anime fan art, so I don't know if it's just because so many anime characters have their hands too small. So when people use them as reference, they are using the actual like measurement there. The hand is not like the size of the head, but it's like at least closer to the size of the head. So like, if you put your hand, and again, hand size can vary. But I mean, for the sake of drawing, if you're trying to make sure your drawing is a little more accurate, it should be, let me see. So if you put your hand over your face, obviously it's covering like basically most of your face. So, I'd say a good measurement is maybe from like the, literally just using my hand is basically like from the chin to the brow. So I would say maybe like 2/3 of a head is about right. Off the top of my head, off the top of my head, I can't remember the exact number, but it is almost the size of your head, not fully the size of your head. Some people might have hands that are that large, but so say you have this this here. Say you have the base of the wrist at the thigh gap. Oh, that's a good one, the thigh gap. Then you would have, so say, and again, I'm not getting into the full anatomy and stuff like that with that because that feels like that would be like a whole tutorial I could do again on just like hands and how hands move. So I might save that, but I'm just kind of roughing roughing a hand out for now for the sake of showing that. Let's see. So wrist at I'm just going to say thigh gap because people will know what I'm talking about. I mean, they'll know what I'm talking about if I say crotch too, but I'm sure they'll know if I. Hands would come to about maybe halfway down the thigh. So, or fingertips rather. Finger tips. Half way down thigh. And again, as I said multiple times, it will vary. This is bothering me that this person has one arm. Again, it will vary depending on the person, and the character, and depending on the physique of the person you're also making. So this is kind of just like a standard, but for certain things, like if you're going to make, if you're aiming for a more feminine physique, then the shoulders would be a little closer together, or like a little less wide. If you're heading for like trying a buffer, like large man physique, you might like make the shoulders even like broader, or expand the chest out more, kind of thing. So the actual chest itself would be basically like 1.5 heads across, and then you kind of have like the extra half head or quarter head on each side here. But again, that'll vary depending on the thing. So do we have any questions so far? As I'm going to grab a couple of references real quick to show you of other characters, and we're going to kind of go over and see. I'm trying to think of good. Well, first I'm going to grab some Pokemon characters because we could actually see how it breaks the rules but still kind of works. Actually, Misty's a good one because she's weird. She breaks a million rules. So let's grab a couple of random characters here. Let me leave this on. First off, let me X out of this. Haha. And save this. Haha. Save as. Do. Here we go. Okay, no questions so far? Then I will continue. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to look at a couple of quick references here of like different examples of characters, and like either ones that break the rule or that follow it, kind of thing. You'll probably see way more of people following the rule in like anime and stuff like that, whereas in like cartoons, some of them, I mean, at least like for kids and stuff like that, they might, but a lot of them will kind of go more towards like the 5 heads. You know, they might make the adult characters have bigger heads and smaller bodies for the sake of like having a more cartoony appearance. But let's see here. Okay, so we have so we'll use Misty. What's a good? Oh, let's grab like Kamina or something. We'll grab like anime references here. Oh, are you guys able to hear me okay? I just want to make sure. All of a sudden my Twitch app told me there was an error. I want to make sure that I didn't get cut off here or anything. Because all of a sudden it's not letting me view my chat on my phone. Why? Why can I not? Why you do this? Okay, cool. I'm going to have to do my app. Anyway, can hear you? Okay. I just want to make sure. There. No? Come? Why? Okay, weird. Yeah, it just randomly gave me a weird error on my thing. I had to reset my app. Anyway, so yeah, let's grab. Oh, here we go. We're gonna grab Art of Kamina from Gurren Lagann as reference. Yes, yes, yes. That's a good one. That's a good one. Okay. There we go. So we could kind of compare characters here. Let's see if there's another good example I can think of. Well, you know what? We'll start with this, and if I think of any more, we'll get into it. So, a bit quiet might be my Twitch app. Let me see it. Make sure my. Oh, it does seem like I'm. I don't know if that's my mic being angled weird. Maybe I'm a little far away from my. How's that? Is that better? I don't know if my mic was angled a little weird. But hey, good thing I don't have music playing. Otherwise, people wouldn't be able to hear me. Anyway, so let's look at. I think it's his frame is probably closer to what I'm talking about here. So we'll talk about Kamina first. So here is concept art of Kamina. Hooray! I don't know what specifically made me think of him. I was just like, oh, that's a man the man. We could talk about his proportions. I'm gonna draw over this. Hopefully, nobody gets mad at me for doing that. So let's apply the rule to Kamina. So let's say he's got use a slightly thinner line here. So we have head. So we have his. Okay, so we have his head. So if you take from his chin to his knops here, oh, look at that! Look at that! Wow! Wow! So 1, 2, okay, and then down to here. I mean, his navel is obscured, but it would be around here, closer to like here. So it'd be 3. Boom. 4. So his is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. His is closer to 8. His feet are also at like that angle. So if we actually cut off there, that would be about the 7.5. But because of the angle he's standing at, then we have basically like an 8. These are not perfectly in line. I should fix these out for the purposes of whatever. But yeah, here, let me actually do what I did before and just. But yeah, so it would be. So the knees are right between 5 and 6. And then his ankles in this case. Yes? Yes. So his ankles in this case would be the 7. And then it's with the angle, it's a little closer to 8. But otherwise it would be like 7.5. So there you go. So there's that rule. And he's got wider shoulders. So let's see if we have the size of his head. Let's see. So yes, about two heads apart, two heads across. And then his elbow here comes to the base of the ribs, and then his wrist at the crotch, hand. Actually, his hand's a little off there. But yeah, so if he had his fingers extended a little more or whatever like that, it would be basically down here near closer to the knee. But actually, how are his knees? No, they don't actually like have his knees properly like sticking out the way this isn't, his pants don't drape over his legs the way they should. Oh, concept art, you're crazy. But anyway, yeah, so his fingers would be basically the middle section between the crotch region and the knees. So there we go. Okay. Let's see. What else? What else? So rib cage. Rib cage, as you could see, this is the trapezius here. He's been blasting his traps, so he's got big ol' whatever. But for the rib cage, would be here. And the rib cage is kind of roughly 1.5 heads, because it's as you can see, it's between the 2 and the 3. Basically finishes the whole rib cage, so that can be measured. Here, let's go back to the thing here, back to the lab again. Yeah, so rib cage, if you start here and you end it here, you're basically around 1.5 heads. So we'll make that note. Oh, I guess I should move these down a little bit so I can have things in proper. Oh, you know what? I'll write it in here. No, I'll actually move it down a little bit, and then I'll write it up there. Okay. But yes, if anybody has any specific questions, please let me know. If you want me to go over anything again, absolutely. Apologies if I'm getting a little off in a certain thing. Again, I'm still getting used to teaching things, and in some cases I am jogging my memory, but for the most part I am happy to say I remember how proportions work. But yeah, again, so for actual like full anatomy, I mean, this is technically anatomy, but I'm not actually getting into like how shit works. That's going to be its whole separate thing. I'm probably going to do like a tutorial on hands or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to like make this a 4-hour long anatomy tutorial or anything like that. I want to talk about the basic stuff here. So, so let's see, rib cage, roughly 1.5 heads. Here we go. So let's see. Should make that a little clearer. I'm going to make a little extra room for this so I could talk about the shoulders. So, actually, so here. So if we look at Misty, oh, she's so cute. Okay, so, I'm going to actually make this canvas a little bigger so I can point out some things here. Change canvas size. Oh, this is a tiny picture of her, but we'll make it a square. There we go. Hooray! Okay, so we have Misty here. Let's measure her size here. So, nope, new layer for that, so I can. Okay. So she got a big old head. So for Miss Big Ol' Head. Okay. So that's 2, and that's already down to the navel. So 3 down to the thighs. 4 down to the shins. 5. So she does basically still follow the adult size rule. So she is a little. I guess if you factor in the that her hair is there, bring it down a little bit. So she is basically 5 heads tall. Yep, right on the money. So hey, guess what? Still falls in between 5 to 8 heads tall. Make it not like a child, even though she's kind of technically a child. I don't know if she is in this art specifically. Isn't she 12? Yeah, she's like, well, I don't know what she is now. I don't know what she is in the later games, but in this outfit, I think she's 12, but I don't know if they just. I think they brought her back in this outfit for the Sun and Moon anime. But, yeah, for the most part, it's again, 5 would be more like adolescent, teenager is a good way to go with that. So that works for her either way. Because when you get down to 4 is when you like are really. That's what I wanted. I wanted to grab a child character. We'll see if I can. Actually, since we're on this, let's grab Shimon might actually be around the same height as her. I'm trying to think of like a Gen 2 has like a 2-year. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how old Ash is actually supposed to be in the anime at this point. Okay, well, anyway, so let me just mark this off. So we have 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 5. So is he still 10? That wouldn't even make sense from a lore standpoint that he did literally all of that in a year, though. But I don't know. I'm sure they don't care. It's a cartoon. Have Bart and Lisa literally ever had a birthday in Simpsons? Probably not. If they did, it was like one episode where they had a birthday. Okay, so what's a good child character I could use as a reference? I mean, obviously there's like Chowder. Oh, you know what? I'm curious. Let's grab some Chowder concept art here. I mean, that's obviously extremely whatever because that's a cartoon. He's 2 heads tall. I mean, you could just see it. He is 2 heads tall. But again, he is supposed to be a small child. So, you know what? Steven Universe might actually be a good one. Let's see. I don't know. Let's see. Let's see, Steven. Maybe not concept art because that's a lot of rough sketches and stuff. It's not. Um, yeah, okay. So I wanted a good example to show like younger kid and older kids. So I don't really care that much about Steven Universe, but because I know there's the time jump arc there, I wanna I wanna use that as a reference. So yeah, exactly. That's why I wanted to do it. So there's small child Steven and teenage. I don't even know. Again, I don't actually care about Steven Universe to be super honest, but I know there was a time skip, so that's why I'm using it as a reference. Um, Obviously, nothing against Steven Universe. I personally am not have not watched much of it, but since I am looking for references for different character sizes and stuff to show, I want examples instead of just drawing out all the different characters. You know, I want to be able to go between the rules I have on here and stuff like that. So again, so for Misty, she falls out to the smaller mark of the average of the 5 to 8 heads tall. Kamina is breaking towards like the 8 because he is the taller character. Chowder is he's a small child, and again, he is gonna be like quote unquote chibified because cartoon. Um, but it still kind of follows the baby toddler size to an extent. I mean, obviously he's not a baby; he is a child, and it is a cartoon with drastic proportion changes and stuff like that. But just for sake of that, okay. So Steven, you could basically just see he's like 3 heads tall, um, which is still probably, again, since it is a cartoon, um, probably a little drastic of a proportion thing. I mean, his legs are as tall as a head, and then his body. I mean, this is more like toddler sized, even though he is not a toddler. But is he like 10? Anyway, so then on this one, let's see. He is. Wow, this is actually a bigger picture, so I got to get a bigger brush so we can see it. Let's see. Well, he's got the poofs, so we kind of gotta like this. Let's see. Yeah, I have no idea how old Steven is. Oh, I should be drawing this on a separate layer so I can. This one is easier to like. You could. The smaller the character is, the more you could just kind of see the proportion, how the difference of them. In terms of this Steven, um, it's like, oh, his hair. What is the size of your head, boy? Why you? We'll guesstimate around there, I guess. Um, I'm like Ash Ketchum. Yeah, no, they actually age him up in the show, unlike other characters. Oh, Bob's Burgers are probably another good eh? Yep. No. No. What happened? What happened? What happened? Why did it undo? It undid. Okay. That was weird. That was not my intent. Okay. So I have one. Okay, so he grows, but he only actually grows by like half a head. And they do kind of make his head a little bigger, so that's like arguable. But I think it is only supposed to be like a year or two later. I think. So even then, you know what? I'm gonna look it up. Steven Universe. Because again, I don't know. No idea. Anyway, any questions so far? But yeah, Steven is 13, 14, 15, 16. What? This is this is not a 16-year-old. This is not a 16-year-old. Again, cartoon. But again, if you want to show a younger character, you get that between 2 and 4 head thing to kind of for his growth is stunted. Yeah, maybe because he's part gem. But well, I mean, he's also, I mean, that's also taking his hair into account. He would actually basically be a full head taller because you have to take that into account. But I mean, he is technically like a head shorter than Misty, even though you know, whatever. And then Kami is like a small child. But isn't he like the same age as Kamina? Isn't Kamina 16 or something? Are we gonna get into this? All right, hold on. Because Yoko is what, 15? How old is Kamina? Kamina, he's 18. Oh, whoopsie doodles. Oh, I didn't know you knew Steven Universe. Okay, so Kamina is 18, yes. But he tall man. He tall man. But I mean, 18 would be an adult, so there you go. You have a full-size adult character. Then you have a quote-unquote teenager, depending on whatever age they're trying to claim she is. And then you have stunted teen. So this was actually a bad example then, if he is stunted growth. But this is basically. Oh no, it's not, because it's still. I accidentally opened something up. This is still showing growth between here. So, 3 head to 4 head size. So there you go. That's how you could show growth. Is you start with a small character, obviously make them bigger, but use the head scale. So if you want to show that they grew a decent amount, you just slap a head in height on them, and there you go. But again, so just to reiterate, go over some of the stuff I said already before I go into something else. So between 5 to 8, you know what? I should specify that this is make this a little smaller. Specify that this is adult proportions. Proportion rule. Now let's see. We'll write child character vary between 2 to 4 heads tall. Okay. Nope, I should make that a little easier to read. I'm writing them all down so that way if people come in, I could just be like, yeah, I'll go through everything again, kind of thing. And then, okay, so the other thing I want to talk about is with Misty. Her shoulders are like basically the size of her head across. Like, and again, this is a proportion thing. But that's what going back to what I was saying. So if you're drawing a more feminine character, a genuine rule is usually that the shoulders are not built as broad. So for, say, an androgynous character, obviously not specifically Kamina, but because he has the wider shoulders and stuff like that, that is more of a male trait. Male sex trait is the broader shoulders and chest in general. So to make a more androgynous character, you would probably like cut this down a little bit. So you would have it. You know what? Let's grab. Since Kamina follows the rule pretty well, let's grab. I don't know if Yoko is a good example. Let me grab like Nia maybe. We have the concept art of. Oh well, this is Child Nia, but you know what? Let's grab Child Nia, yeah, because we could kind of see here then. Oh, that's still too small. Yeah, I could still work with it. It's a smaller picture, unfortunately, but so yeah. So for but again, this is younger Nia, so she does still. This is kind of more like, you know, one head for her shoulders. Oh, but here's, you know, here they're showing it a little bit that her shoulders are actually a little wider than her head. So that would be, I guess, depending on how frail you want the character to look, you would maybe have their torso between one head across, say here again. So her torso itself is the same as her head, but her shoulders come out a little bit. So it would be like maybe 1 1/4 heads in proportion. So the frailer you want a character to look, basically, the smaller you would make their torso, but you don't want to make it like, I mean, again, unless you go for very unless you're doing like Waluigi and you're doing a very stylized, extremely thin character for like cartoon or something like that. If you're aiming to draw a more realistic looking character, you would want to do that. So let me see. I want to see if they have like adult Nia. Otherwise, I could grab maybe adult Yoko. I'm just looking to see what. Okay, you know what? Let's just grab Yoko. Luckily, there's all this Gurren Lagann concept art I could just grab and be like, hey, look at this. Okay, so for Yoko, let's do the measurement test again. So I mean, her chin is like here. So we have chin here, basically there, top of head, there. Okay, so one, two, three, four, 5, 6, and then, I mean, she's wearing heels. This basically cuts off at her sole, so we'll say roughly around 6 heads tall. So there you go. Hers is still regular human proportions on her. But yeah, so, and then for her shoulders, it's a little harder to tell because, wow, she's got drastic shoulder movement there. So let's see. That would be, oh, you know what? Good way to cheat for that is do this again. And we're gonna move it. So, bazow. Okay, so her shoulders, let's see, get all the way to the edge here. So yeah, roughly 1.5 heads, maybe a little less. Um, and then her actual frame, yeah. So her frame would be roughly 1 head across for the torso. Obviously, they gave her like crazy. Oh no, so her hips are about 1 head across too. Oh, no, we don't need that on there. So let's go back to Kamina here. And for what was I gonna say? Oh no, I already went over his ribs. That's right. Yeah, so that the ribs are basically 1.5 heads tall. In her case, it's basically 1 head tall for her ribs. Again, she's at a little bit of a weird angle here, but her rib cage is a little smaller. So again, this is, I'll just gonna go over stuff again real quick. So this is a standard say standard average frame of a person. So this is more of a androgynous or gender neutral body. It will vary depending on obviously whatever you're pushing to make the character look more like. So if you're trying to draw a frailer, more feminine character, you would bring the shoulders in a little more. If you're trying to draw a buffer, more manly character, you would make the shoulders a little bigger, broaden the chest a little bit. If you want an androgynous character, you do right in the middle. So we'll say maybe 1.5 heads for a more androgynous character. 1.25 heads for a more feminine character. Because again, you don't want to make the torso like too small. Because if you make the torso like too small, then it's not going to look right. Because then you're going to get like, where are their organs? So you do still want to make it so the body makes sense. So going back to Nia, that's Chowder. I mean, no, that's Nia, totally. Okay, I'm getting off of character stuff now. I'm just going to use Gurren Lagann for now. It's a good one. I mean, I'll go back to Misty too because she's pretty good at this. But she's actually probably around the same as Nia. Well, actually, Nia's got pretty long legs, so she's probably 6'2". But not 6'2" height. She's probably 6 heads tall. Hi, Biscuit. What's happening? I'm talking about proportions. Ba-boom, here we go. You got questions, we got answers. Okay, I'm gonna make people sick if I do that. But yes, hello. How are you doing, Biscuit? Do you have any specific questions, or do you want me to go over anything specifically? So yeah, all of these characters still fall into the adolescent to adult. I guess I should make this as like teen slash adult proportion rules. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm doing okay. I'm doing a show. Anyway, yes, so does anybody have any questions so far? Otherwise, I'm going to move on to head proportions, and then I'll leave this up. Oh, let me save this. So I figured I would start at the head so I could basically just get all the basics out here. And then figured we'll do a zoom in, quote unquote, and by zoom in I mean I make a new thing specifically to talk about the head. for facial proportions, and then I'll basically be done if nobody has any other questions after that. So that'll take me till, I don't know, 11:30. This isn't going to be that long of a stream, so it's not going to be my full stream because I got other stuff to do, and I don't think this is going to take me 4 hours to explain because I'm basically through the basics of proportions here. Oh, and again, child character varies between 2 to 4 heads. Yeah, no, I'm just going to work on other stuff after this that I have to get done. Especially because there's a snowstorm coming, so I'm worried about not having power for like 2 of the days that I need to work on something, so I'm going to try and get it mostly done tonight. But anyway, so yes, proportions. So I'm just going to quickly go over stuff I've talked about already. If anybody has any questions, please let me know. And then I will move on to how facial proportions. Okay, bye Ty, thanks for coming. So anyway, so yes, just to 1 second, I'm gonna take a sip of water, and then I'm gonna reiterate everything. Okay, so just to go over everything again. When you're measuring out proportions for a teen and or adult character, or any character really, a good way to measure out your proportions to make sure stuff looks right is to take the size of the head of the character. So you could basically start with a head, and then use the head as the measurement for the rest of the body. So if you want a teen to adult, the general rule is somewhere between 5 to 8 heads tall. Obviously that can vary depending on the person. The standard to kind of follow is roughly 7.5 heads. But again, it'll vary depending on the person. So 7.5 is like the art rule of like where to start basically. And if you want to tweak it from there, obviously do whatever you want. I did this with 7.5 heads, but again, it varies. I'll go through the different characters I have on here as the different examples again in a second. So to measure it out, it would basically be the head is obviously 1 head. The neck and the neck to the chest, or basically nipple line, would be 2 heads. Then down to the navel would be 3 heads. Then down to the, call it the thigh gap, or the bottom of the pelvis. Bottom of the pelvis would, for whatever reason, my brain didn't think bottom of pelvis. I was just like, what do I say that's not like crotch? I don't want to write crotch on the screen, even though I'm saying it. But I don't know. And then, so like middle to lower thigh would be another one, and then below the knee would be 6, and then somewhere down the calf to the shin would be 7, and then depending on if you're going for the 8 feet or the 7.5 feet, it would be the other half of the calf to the bottom of the feet, or just like the ankle to the feet, or whatever. So that's, again, this is going by 7.5. A lot of things will say 8. But if you get 8, you get to, that's making a weird sound. Excuse me for a second. Okay. So, so when you get to 8, you get like, a taller character. And then so example, Kamina, ha. And I marked him down here. He is technically 7.5. I have it at 8 because they have the way his feet are angled down. But he is actually technically 7.5. So, but again, so you can get down to 8 if you want to actually show that. Hold on, this is auto-saving. Okay, to show the feet angled downward at all, then you would make that 8 anyway. Okay. So, oh, I didn't write this down. I'll write it. Uh, I'll write it down in a second. Um, so for the shoulders, the shoulders vary up a lot, and the reason for that is the physique of a person. So here I kind of have it marked as like roughly two heads. This would probably be maybe more like 1.75 heads across. I just kind of roughly marked it out. Um, but yeah, so the rib cage width and the shoulder width and stuff like that is going to vary depending on the um, the physique of the character. So if they have a frailer physique or something, you would show the smaller rib cage. So for example, for that is, hey, you have Misty. Her shoulders and ribs are like, she's like freaking a head. It's like one head for her like whole torso basically. And that's, you're showing a smaller feminine character. Um, I'm trying to think of a good reference of like an androgynous character to use. I can't really think of one off the top of my head, unfortunately, to use as reference. But so basically, to compare these characters, it's like, Nia is a very frail character. Her shoulders are like hanging down a little more. She's basically only like roughly a head across, maybe 1.25. Yoko is kind of the same, and I actually have her marked out here. So she's a little taller. So she's more like 6.5 heads tall. Her shoulders are a little broader, but it's still like a little under 1.5. Because it's like, well, she's like a stronger female character, and then they have like Nia is supposed to be a more frail female character, so she's got like a little bit of a smaller frame, basically. Yeah, they have heavy shoulder slopes, but hey, I was pretty dang lucky to be like, what's a good character like show that has good character proportions? And then I was like, oh yeah, Gurren Lagann. And sure enough, I type in Gurren Lagann and I get a bunch of concept art. I'm like, hell yeah. It works so perfectly for this. I did have um I guess I should have left it up to talk about child characters, but I'll go through the rest of this and I'll talk about child characters again quickly. Um, so yeah, if you want a more, so his are like straight up two heads across, like full two heads across. His chest is roughly 1.5 heads across. Um, Maybe a little even wider. So he's got very broad shoulders and stuff because they want him to build him up to be like a very manly character. That's like the whole thing they're pushing. So Shimon might actually be a good in between, but I mean he's not androgynous, so um, I can't specifically think of a good androgynous character to put as an in between of these build wise, but that's basically for the sake of just explaining a rule on that. It's if you want a more androgynous character, you would. I mean, here you basically use an in between. So this is an androgynous form, more, you know, Kamina's is a little wider. Nia is very frail. Yoko's kind of in between. She's got more of the hourglass figure. Nia is very thin. Her whole torso, even her legs are like a head width apart. So yeah, basically, when it comes to character width, it's uh, one head down would be like the way to show frailty, and the wider you make them, the broader, the broader character, the stronger the character looks, the wider you make the build of their ribs and shoulders. Um, so for the rib cage itself, for the height, is actually roughly 1.5 heads, which you can see with Kamina here. I kind of marked out a little bit, but it's basically like a third down into the two head is where the rib cage would actually start, and it goes basically to the 2/3 mark for the third head down in the anatomy. So it is So from, yeah, I have it marked here. So from here to here, would be like the ribs, basically. Um, let's see. So then, yeah, the third goes down to the navel. Um, the rough rule here is the elbow would be basically at the base of the rib cage. So if you're sitting there and you just kind of put your arms down, put your arms at your side, and then bend at your elbows. So say if you take your like left arm and put it to your side, like right across your side, and you take your hand and you feel where your elbow hits, it'll be around the base of the rib cage. Obviously, people have different anatomy. Some people might have longer arms. Some people might have shorter arms. It'll be basically around the base of the ribs, though. And again, this is just. I know I've said this like 7 times over the course of the night, but I want to reiterate. This is specifically for if you are drawing a character and you're wanting it to look like a specific proportion. If you're going through a character and something looks wrong, if somebody looks too stubby or something like that, you look at something like this and be like, okay, well, what am I forgetting? So are you you look at something like this and like, okay, well, are you accounting for the space between the rib cage and the hips? Are you accounting for this, like the thigh to the knee to the calves, right? Like calf, shin, because that'll vary. So that's stuff to account for. Basically, as long as you measure out 5 to 8 heads, again, go back to Misty. The second head ends at her navel. Like it's not. She's not following the average because she is a younger, smaller character. And she's just shorter in general, but she's also like, I don't know. In this case, it's a question if she's 12 or not. I actually don't know if her age changes at all in the course of the anime or anything, but in the course of any of the lore, if any of them actually age at this point, I have no idea. But this is a good, like, five heads is a good, like, teenager height because you're getting the in between. They're getting to be kind of towards adult height. A lot of people have basically grown to their height by the time they're like 14. So so that makes sense. And again, then we have Nia. I didn't actually measure Nia out, but Yoko's shit. How old is she again? I think she's 16. I mean, she obviously has the time skip, but she's 14. Okay, so there you go. Teenage girl. They probably gave her a little more adult proportions, but whatever. It's anime. So yeah, basically, if you want to draw a teenager to an adult, 5 to 8 heads tall. Sorry, getting back to the arms. So yeah, the elbow will be at the base of the rib. It could technically be between the rib and the navel. So basically, if you are drawing a shorter character, but you want to use the reference, basically the arm, and let's look at her again, the elbow shouldn't drop below the navel. So in her case, it's like, boom, right there. That's like perfect. So, so yeah, somewhere between the ribs and the navel, depending on the height of your character. The wrist would be basically at the pelvis or the thigh gap. It still follows there. So there you go. Actually, her elbow is like kind of at a weird angle. So technically her elbow is right in between the navel and the rib cage. Or at the base. Again, kind of hard to tell. Well, let's see. So let's do math. If we take the proportion of her arm angled and you, whatever, yeah, so rib cage around in between the rib cage and the navel. Rule of thumb. The wrist would be at the thigh gap, which is where hers are. Fingertips would be well, her hands like this, but roughly halfway down the thigh for the fingertips. So, haha. And then you would basically put like the knee kinda halfway around the I mean, yeah, so you got, let's see here. So the knee the knee would basically start halfway through from the pelvis to the shin in this case is the start of the knee. So and then again, so for any of this to be applied to a child character, it would be 2 to 4 heads. I had a reference of Steven Universe just because I was showing how he varies. And then somebody pointed out to me that technically in the show, they say his growth is stunted, but it's still kind of, let me grab him again. So, a good way to show, let me grab these two pictures again, just because I'm going over everything here. So there's that boy. And then I don't know. And again, I mean, I basically just grabbed Steven Universe because I was like, what is a character that it goes through a time skip in a cartoon kind of thing. So here he's, we established he was 3 heads tall, and then to show him getting older, even though he technically has stunted growth in the show, they basically just add another head to him. So he's roughly a little under 4 heads tall, but then we measured well with the hair, he ends up coming out to around 4 heads tall anyway. So when you get into like extremely small characters or like cartoon, like very cartoony, you would get into like Chowder, and Chowder is 2 heads tall. I'll grab him again. So just to reiterate everything, he's basically 2 heads tall. So come on, load up. Come on, there he is. I love Chowder so much. So yeah, that's just straight up 2 heads tall, and in that case, it's like that's a small character. So I would recommend only doing the 2 heads tall, like if you are trying to show a like small, like specifically cartoony child. So that's why I'm still on the 2 on here, but usually it would be like 3 to 4 for a child. So technically this is like a toddler's height. But, you know. Anyway, so there we go. Any questions? Before I move on to just talking about head proportion rules, and then I'll wrap up. So I'll probably go till around 11:30. Any specific questions? Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm not 100% sure what else to talk about on this specifically besides I want to do anatomy tutorials at some point. Like at some point I'm going to actually go over hands. I didn't really want to get into like the size of hands and stuff like that because hand size varies a lot. But I would say as like a typical rule, if you're drawing a hand on a character, you want to try and make maybe the hand roughly 2/3 of the size of the head, I would say. It's got to be enough to cover the face. So obviously I don't have webcam, but if you could see me right now, I have my hand in my face. The base of my hand, basically at my chin, my hands go up to the very tip of my middle finger basically goes to probably a centimeter away from my hairline. Yowie hands, yeah. So, so then you got to factor in. So it might be more like 3/4, but again, it varies. So, um, I don't want to say give a definitive rule on hand because with certain anatomy things, I want to refresh myself to make sure I'm not giving any false information. But for this stuff, I remember. For hands, um, I usually just make sure that they are not too tight. Like you don't make the hand bigger than the head, but also don't make the hand smaller than the face. So like if you look at, you know what? Let me get into this real quick. So not to shit on anything in particular, but let's look at Danganronpa. So dangly ropa, dangly grandpa. Um, let's see. Believe. Let me see. You know what? These sprites don't have as okay. They are still pretty small hands, but they're not um as tiny as I was remembering them as. But let's grab Toko from Dang It Grandpa. Um, and so oh okay, thank you, Biscuit. So we'll just go over this real quick. Also, her hands are drawn weird. This finger is too long. Um, but yeah, because their head. Oh, Biscuit, thank you for the host. I appreciate it. So proportion wise, she's again. I don't want to make fun of this or anything like that. Proportion wise, she's kind of a mess. Um, but that's again a stylistic thing. But like her eyes are too big. Even they are a little unevenly spaced, improperly spaced. Um, her structure is not proper. Her neck is too thin. Again, not to shit on it. I looking at this. I mean, I like this art. It's good. I appreciate the style of Danganronpa, but just for the sake of talking about proportion, I was like, what's a character with like tiny hands? And her proportionate to her head, her hands are like tiny. So, I mean, if her head was like proportioned a little better, maybe they wouldn't be. But her hands are like that. It's like from her mouth to her eyes. Um, and again, if she extends the whole finger, maybe it would be like that. In which case, it would still be that. So they're still pretty small. Um, so again, that's not like necessarily a bad thing. Like they're still whatever, but I have noticed um, a lot of artists lately um, have been drawing the hands very small. So like in the case of Steven Universe, it's like, well, I mean they're cartoony, so it's whatever. But let's see if we have um, like I said, I don't want to get too much into this, but for my problem is that none of these have the hands fully outstretched, so it's kind of hard to tell. But for Kamina, um, let's say, um, let's grab this again. And okay, so with his hand kind of clenched like this, um, it's at half a head already, and then with the fingers fully extended, so let's say he's got his hand like this. So if he were to fully extend his hand like that, hold on, fully extend his finger like that, then you would get into like the 2/3, 3/4 of a head size. So that's just like a general rule of thumb, is maybe roughly 2/3. Again, it could vary depending on the character, but If you're worried about your hands being too small or too large, put them up to the head. Just see how they look next to the head. If it's like the size of the mouth to the eyes, it's probably too small, or it's definitely too small. If it's bigger than the head, then make them smaller. But a good rule of thumb is basically like if it could cover the hand can cover the face basically. So here's rough notes. If anybody needs the screen cap, I'll wait a second. But otherwise, I'm going to move on to just talking about the head, just some basic rules for the head proportion, and then I'll probably wrap up. So I'll probably be going another anywhere from 15 minutes to half an hour talking about head proportions. But yeah. So that's what I'll do. So I'm gonna make a new. I'll save this as head proportions. Yeah. Okay, so am I drawing Jake from State Farm? No, I am not. Or maybe. Anyway, also, hello. How are you? What's happening? So yes, so we went through the basic proportions for the body, and we have all these little characters. Yeah, we have all the characters showing references of how body proportions work. So now we are going to talk about head specifically. So obviously, heads come in all different shapes and sizes. There's different jaw widths, chin, blah blah blah. So this is basically just a basic rule of thumb or basic rules of thumb for spacing. So proportions on like facial spacing, basically. So, boom, 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 boom. Okay, so for a head, we'll just do this for now. Or you know what? Let's sketch it out so it looks proper. So we'll build up the head from here. Let's mark this out, and we'll build out the jaw a little bit. Just rough it out a little bit here. And that's something you could do too when you're not that this is specifically what I was going to talk about because I'm not really going into full like anatomy thing, just basic proportions. But a good thing you could do is if you're having trouble getting a head shape, basically just do like a circle and then build from there. So you could just build get that and then build up from there. But yeah, so here's basic head. Hooray. So when you're doing facial proportions, this cross is a good way to start because you want to get the basically you want to have it as a center line. And obviously this might not be 100% perfect, but it's fine. When you're roughing stuff out, you just basically want to have a center line for the vertical and one for the horizontal, because you could build your proportions from there. So, you know what? I'll make this a little bit smaller so I have more room to write the rules on the side like I did with the rest of it. Again, here, boom, all that. Yay, fun stuff. So we'll put this here, and I'll write all the little notes around it. So, oh, hydrate. Yes, I shall. Thank you. So basically, you could get yourself your oval or whatever, and just kind of get the proper head shape going. And then you get the middle point. So let's see. So for the first rule, we'll establish the eyes. The eyes are one. I'll make this pen a little smaller. Eyes are on the center axis of head. So general rule, eyes, it might look weird because people are going to be like, oh, but the hair is all the way up here. No. And it's like, no, you're factoring in that the head goes up past a certain point. So technically it would be more like here. And then here's the scalp and whatnot. So the eyes themselves are on the center axis of the head. So the center the horizontal is right. It's just right horizontal axis instead of horizontal center axis. So, I mean, another thing you could just say is the eyes are at the center of the head, but some people might get confused with that because it's not, they're not here, but they're, we'll just write down XY. So, and then the nose is vertical axis. So, nose, eye. But wait, there's more. So, you know what? For the sake of space, we'll have these two on top because these two are important. So, important rule of thumb is eyes are an eye's length. It's like, what does that mean? Eyes are an eye's length apart. So eyes are an eye's length apart. And obviously, depending on your style and everything, your eyes are going to be like, wildly different. Anime has a lot of different styles, stuff like that. And so let's go. I mean, we could just use Yoko. She's right here. So you could actually see here. And it might be like, oh, but look how she's got them big old anime eyes. There's no way. And it's like, oh, well, wait a minute. I'm actually going to use red here. Oh, no. Get rid of that. If you measure her eyes, this one, that could be a little closer. Gasp. I don't know why I gasped and then said gasp, but look at that. 3 eyes across. Maximum poggers, Mars Chan. So basically, let's just, for the sake of this, use big old circles. I know eyes. I mean, the eyeball is a circle, so you could just say that anyway. But so the eye would be an eye's length apart. So again, this will vary. This is just for a rule of thumb. If you're drawing something out, or if you're looking at a piece that you're working on and you're like, something looks wrong in the face, this is a good rule to follow. Basically, is just check to see if your eyes aren't eyes like the part. Obviously, there are going to be people out there who have different facial structures in general. So people's eyes might be closer together. Some eyes might be further apart. But for the most part, they'll be around this size. So, I mean, like, it doesn't have to be perfect. But if you're looking at a face that you drew and you're like, something doesn't look right, that could be it. Another rule is ears. Are roughly the same height as the nose to the eyebrows to the brow. I'll just write brow. So and that obviously that works vice versa. So like if you put small ears on a character and then you put like big nose, I actually almost made it. It's like big nose and eyebrows up here, it's not going to look as accurate. But if you do ear, and then you have the brow here, and then bottom of the nose here, there you go. Put little pupils on there for the sake of whatever. So yes, so eyes. Let's look at a reference again. It actually kind of works here because even though they look like they're kind of small, and they are, his eyes are eyes. His ears are kind of small, but if you look here, you could see his brow is here, and the bottom of his earlobe, boom, nose. So it is still following the proportion, even though his ears are a little bob. And again, this is concept art, so sometimes concept art might not really follow the rule super well. So here's an example of what Misty is a really good example of let's not follow this rule at all. For like basically everything. And I was talking about this when I was doing a Pokemon stream the other day. We were just drawing Pokemon characters, and I was trying to draw Misty, and it was driving me crazy because her facial structure was all messed up. Her eyes are too tall, too far apart. Her ears are tiny. They go under the nose. They go halfway across the eye. It's just no. Bad. It's bad. Wrong. But again, it's a stylized thing. But if you're trying to, I mean, you look at her and I just see it right away. It's like, okay, well, that's not right. That's not right. That's not right. And I know Pokemon characters vary a lot style-wise. I mean, also like her head is so huge that her eyes are not, even if you could tell here that her head goes up like all this way. But like even this, so the center of her eyes are basically like kind of starting in the right spot. but they should, everything on here, everything on her face should be moved up a little bit, and then this ear should be bigger, basically. So it should be, so let me try to, so her ear should be, I don't know, it's, I guess maybe black, maybe go back to black here. So her ear should be, let's see, if we're calling this the center of her head, ear should be, let's see, so there's the nose, brows. Oh my gosh. Okay. Sorry, auto saving. So her ear should be like this. Let me try a different thing here. There we go. Nope, it's not working either. One moment. While I grab a better tool for working tiny like this. Oh, none of these tools are very good for working tiny. There we go. She's got a mustache here now. So yes, so her ear should technically be around this size. Her eyes should be a little bit bigger. Wow, this is actually really hard to show on this tiny thing right here. It's because, unfortunately, I grabbed a tiny picture of her because I couldn't find this in a larger size. But, okay, so if you want to make her eyes the proper size here, you can make them basically like that. So you make them a little wider there. Get rid of that line. Get rid of her mustache. Add a little white to her eye here. So here we are. We're editing. Hope I don't get sued by Nintendo. We're editing Misty. So apologies to anybody who works on Pokemon. But, I mean, I'm just drawing the character with normal human proportions here. So get over it. Okay, now this ear is too big because blah, blah, blah. So, be like here. Actually, no, hold on. Okay, and then you would, I'll just put white over this part for the sake of, I'm just basically drawing over this to show the difference. So there you go. That's a little bit closer to normal human proportion there. As you make the eyes a little wider, ear higher, ear bigger. And then look at that. Misty looks like a freaking normal person for once. So there you go. Yes. There, that's that. So then, let's see. Sorry, get myself back in the mindset here. And I for one, so when I was younger, the ears, I think the ears, and I feel like this is a big problem for a lot of people, is the spacing. So that's why I wanted to talk about this. I would always think my ears look too big when I actually drew them right. For whatever reason, my brain never processed ears properly. And again, I mean, obviously there are going to be people out there that have different proportions. This is just a rule of thumb for um, basic proportions, like average proportions. If a character doesn't look right to you or something, and you need a reference. Um, but But yeah, so you would have the ears to the nose, and the eyebrows, and the eyes apart. Um, let's see. Does anybody have any questions so far? Any questions? Any questions so far? Giving it a minute just to see anybody has any questions. Maybe I'll cut this out of the YouTube video, but maybe not because it's only like 2 hours long, so I probably won't cut that much out. And clearly everybody wants to hear me sing this song. Okay, so basically what you do here then is you would have roughly equal. I mean, again, doesn't have to be equal, just kind of roughly. But the brow to the hairline, we'll say the hairline's around here. I actually probably drew it a little low before. I'm gonna actually clean this up a little bit for the sake of the arts. So another rule, or just rough estimate, would be like the chin to the nose. Well, here, let's see. So for the hairline, we'll say about there, because that should be around there. Autosave likes to happen a lot. So and boom. Okay. So you could basically separate the head into 4 or 3 segments rather. Not technically 4 segments because you have like the hairline up here, but it's like the obviously the hairline to the top of the head is a very small segment, and then you have the brow, the forehead to the brow, and then you have the brow to the nose, and you have the nose to the chin. So with the mouth, probably say the mouth would be not exactly halfway. That can vary a little bit. But you could kind of label it as say like halfway roughly. Again, it's gonna vary a little bit, but it's probably more like a third. Depending on the person's facial structure, it'll change. But usually you would have like the chin would be like here to here, whether you actually have a dimple chin or not. But then the mouth basically like that. I don't know why I'm making that. So yeah, you would basically divide this into 3. And again, depending on your style, it might vary. Obviously, in this case, they put Misty's mouth in the middle. So let's look at Commun's facial structure again. So for his facial structure, it's basically let me grab a smaller pen here. Okay, so so his is basically 1/3. So it's from the nose to the mouth to the chin line here to the base of the chin. Let me see. Maybe Nia. Nia's her. This is unfortunately a tiny picture. Nia and I guess because they have smaller frames, nose, mouth, chin. So they're small because they have smaller faces, facial structures. The mouth is kind of more in the halfway point of theirs. So again, that's just a basic rule. Obviously, depending on the person, things are going to be different. People have smaller chins, people have smaller jaws. But obviously the mouth is also on the middle of the axis. Again, there might be people out there with different facial structure for whatever reason. So basic rule, 1, 2, 3 from the nose to the chin. You could just put in like 3 lines there, and then you'll know where to put the mouth and the indent of the chin and the bottom of the chin. So, any questions? Any questions? So yes, the eyes are on the horizontal axis, or the center line of the head. Nose is on the vertical axis. Eyes are an eye's length apart. The ears are the size of this second segment here, which is from the eyebrows to the nose. And then here, let me write the nose to chin. Nose to chin. 1/3 mouth, 2/3 indent. But so I'll do it like this instead. 1/3 of the way is the mouth, 2/3 of the way is the indent, and then you go to the bottom of chin. So, and then the eyebrow to the hair line would be roughly the same size. Again, it varies depending on the person's size of the nose and the ears and blah blah blah. Roughly the same. So this would be like from the chin to the hairline would roughly be 3 parts, and then there will be a little more on top with the actual scalp. So I don't know if anybody has any questions. Let me see if I can think. Let me just consult my notes real quick in terms of proportion stuff. I'm not going to talk about regular anatomy stuff in this episode. I want to save that for a separate thing. But obviously people's hair are going to be different and everything like that. So, but in terms of the actual facial proportions, it goes from the hairline. In fact, let's see. I'll write this down. Hairline, brow, nose, chin. Okay. So, in terms of basic proportions, that's what you got. Again, if there's any specific questions on like anatomy or anything, I'll be happy to answer those, but otherwise I'll probably do that in a separate episode. Kind of looks like today there's like less questions the last time, so I'll probably end early. I'll end in a couple of minutes, unless anybody comes in and asks a question. So I'm currently debating if I want to keep doing this every other week or if I want to make this a monthly tutorial. So if anybody has any specific input on that, please let me know. That's, that's basically where I'm at right now. I don't want to run out of things to talk about. If I don't get a lot of questions and stuff like that, I'm worried I won't. I'll kind of burn through a lot of my tutorial ideas relatively quickly. So if anybody has any specific questions or any suggestions on what they want to see me talk about in terms of specific anatomy stuff, that is safe for work. Specific anatomy stuff. Anybody wants me to go over any kind of tutorials in terms of specific drawing techniques or anything like that, let me know. Other future tutorials I will probably be doing, I'll probably be talking about shading and hatching. I'll be talking about hands, like just I'll probably just do a tutorial for hands, and like maybe and wrist. Maybe I'll just do like anatomy tutorials here and there, and I'll do like arm / hand for obviously whatever, and then we'll get into like muscular structure and everything like that. I am also considering, hopefully nobody gets the big mad at me, I am also considering making these subscriber tutorials because I need some way to figure out getting them subs. Yeah, I mean, I'll have to see. I enjoy making these. I think this is stuff that's important for people to know. So I don't really necessarily want to be like hide it behind like a paywall or something. So I mean, I probably won't actually like make it subs only or anything like that. But if you like what you see, if you want to keep, if you want me to keep doing it, feel free to subscribe or donate or whatever. Have a coffee, KOFI. Feel free to donate or anything like that to that for support. Obviously, the more people I know that are interested in this, the more I will do it. But as of right now, I am debating. I might, even though I was going to do this every other week, I might do it once a month or every couple of weeks, depending on interest. So I'm really trying to gauge interest in me doing these. So far, it's a little unclear. I know people are liking them. I just don't know how many people are liking them. So I might space them out more. Because again, I'm not getting paid for it, which is fine. But I have other things I could be doing work related also. So let me know if this is something you want me to do on this regular basis. If it makes more sense for me to do this once a month. Again, feel free to support if you want to subscribe or tip, donate, whatever. That's appreciated. No pressure on that. So once again, I'll just do a quick overview on everything, and then I'll wrap up. So for a quick overview, we have for teen to adult proportion rule, anywhere from 5 to 8 heads tall. The art standard is 7.5 heads, but do what you want. And the segments would be basically divided into head, chest, navel, hips, thigh, knee area, calf to shin, and the feet. Obviously, these will vary depending on the size of your character. If you have a character like Kamina, he's he's basically 7.5, a little bit to the 8 because of the way he's drawn here. But if you go to his actual heels at the bottom here, he's 7.5. If you do a character like Misty, which get rid of the facial edits, Misty is 5 heads tall. For a second, I guess the other line disappeared on me. There it is. She's bad. No, she's not actually bad. That was talking about the proportions. In terms of the shoulder width, it is basically anywhere from 1 to 2 heads across, depending on the broadness of your character. So Kamina being an extremely broad, muscular character, is his shoulders are 2 heads across. Nia and Yoko being smaller, Nia being a very frail character, she's basically only a head across. Yoko is more like 1.25 because she's a little more built of a character. For an androgynous character, probably easier to do more about 1.5 heads, because that's a good middle ground. The rib cage is 1.5 heads tall. As you can see, it starts a little bit between at the base of the neck, so you get between the head and jaw to the chest here is basically like 2/3 to 3/4, and you get down to here for 2/3 again, to another 3/4 here, so that would be 1.5 heads for the rib cage. For the arms, the elbow would be basically at the base of the ribs or between rib and navel, depending on your character's proportions. The wrist would basically be at the thigh gap, at the base of the pelvis area, or the crotch. The fingertips would be about halfway down the thigh. And if you're drawing a child character, if it's like a very cartoony child character, you could have like Chowder, it would be something like 2 heads tall. If it's more of a semi-realistic child character, it would be probably like 3 to 4 heads, maybe up to 5 to show they are like kind of adolescent, but maybe not a teen yet. So again, Misty is 5 heads tall. She would basically be, and she is like 12 to 14, I guess, depending on how in the beginning she's 12. I don't know if they changed whatever over time. Pokemon is a weird timeline. I have no idea how it actually works in terms of time, but she is 5 heads tall, so she is good base as like a teen to adolescent, like a teen size character, to show she's not like a necessarily a fully developed person. But obviously there are people who break the rules, or just shorter to taller characters in general. So you might have some people that are a little below 5 heads. You might have some people that are a little taller than 8 heads. But basically using the head is a good measurement of proportion to get it to look like an adult character, adult proportions. And then lower than that would be getting more into a child proportions, and taller than that would be usually a little excessively tall, but obviously people that are built much taller don't necessarily have bigger heads. So you can break that, but this is just the basic 5 to 8 heads to get that that size if you want to draw an adult character. So 5 heads would be, again, like Misty would be like a shorter character, but like still normal, whatever. Yoko is roughly 6 heads tall, maybe a little bigger than 6.5 heads tall. Nia is we didn't actually figure out, but let's see right here. Roughly 6. I butchered it a little bit on purpose because I was doing it with my mouse instead of my tablet. But what are you gonna do? So just to go over her head again. The head, the face itself is broken up into three segments here, which would be from the hairline to the brow to the nose, and the nose to the chin. The head, you got that little bit of extra space on top, but in terms of the actual facial proportions, that's what you're working with. So yeah, hairline, brow, nose, and chin. The eyes are on the center line of the head, the horizontal axis of the head, and they are an eye's length apart. So if you are drawing eyes, we'll go back to Yoko here. So even though she's an anime character, and you might be like, "Oh, her eyes are so big," yeah, but they are still technically spaced properly. So, but then you get to Misty, who's she's just a mess. This is where I came in with the bad. This, it might be a little jarring, but this is actually a little closer to proper proportion here because her eyes are an eye's length apart now, and also her nose to brow are now roughly the same as her ear. I mean, I could make the ear a little bigger than that. But yeah, so the proportion there is that the ears are roughly the same height as the nose to the eyebrow. Obviously, little bits can change here and there, but that's a good rule to follow because generally, if you have smaller ears, you may have a smaller nose too. It's just basically how the face is built. And for the mouth, you basically break the segment of the nose to the chin into three different segments. The first third being the nose to the mouth, the second being the mouth to the indent of the chin, and the third being from the indent to the bottom of the chin. Obviously, that'll vary on a person's jaw and everything like that, but for the sake of basic, like, classical art rule, there you go. So that's basically it for me. I don't know if anybody's in chat. If anybody has questions, let me know. Otherwise, for anybody watching on YouTube, or anybody who's watching the VOD on Twitch later, please feel free to either leave a comment or DM me on Twitter. I forgot to put my username on the thing, but my username is Our Brave Hero, all one word. Here, I'm gonna switch over to my other thing for a second. Boom, there it is, the bottom right. Our Brave Hero. So, yes. So feel free to follow me on Twitter for more updates and stuff like that. I will be doing another one of these in... you know what? I might hold off on doing another one of these until the first week of January. So what I might actually do is I'll ask some people if they have any specific things they want to see me do. But I might take a little gap in here, and what I might end up doing is the first Tuesday of every month I might make Tutorial Tuesdays. I'll try and gauge interest based on uploading this to YouTube and stuff like that. I know, unfortunately, don't have a lot of people specifically popping in during the stream, which is totally okay. But, obviously, I don't want to burn out on doing these, making sure I have stuff all set up every 2 weeks, and then, like, run out of things. And then, like, people start getting into it, like, later on because I, like, burned through a lot of the stuff I knew in the first, like, couple of months. And then I know where to go from there. So I might just end up making this a monthly series. But I want people to let me know what they want to learn, if there's anything specific they want to learn about. Again, I might make specific anatomy streams. I'll do streams talking about using certain programs. I'll do streams talking about all different things. So just, if there's anything you want to know, hit me up on Twitter or leave a comment on YouTube or DM me if we're friends on something. And yeah, so that's about gonna wrap it up for me. So thank you guys for coming. We'll start playing my outro in a second. Actually, you know what? Okay, so I'm gonna end it for YouTube here. YouTube, thanks for coming. Goodbye. Boom. There's outro for YouTube.